time once again for On Point Live. I'm Michael Horn. But the stars of our show, a couple of great football legends. Vince Ferragamo, number 15 of the Los Angeles Rams. Jackie Slater, number 78, the Energizer Bunny. Played 20 seasons for the Los Angeles Rams. And we're here to go behind the scenes in football and give you information that you may not know about. We call the program On Point Live. We stay on point. And here's Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. How you doing this week, gentlemen?
Doing fine, guys. Doing fine.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Getting ready to get a great guest that we've got lined up here today. But I got to remind everybody, first and foremost, that we've got a great sponsor, HarmonyCheese.com, and this is the place where you get the best cheese made in the heartland of America, Green Bay. You might have heard of that town. I believe they have a packing company, maybe a football team. Maybe it's a packaged Green Bay or Green Bay Packers. Anyway, one of those. HarmonyCheese.com has some of the finest cheese. Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater attest to that. Am I right, Jackie?
Absolutely.
Your favorite?
Six pepper cheddar, Abergele, you name it. All of their cheeses are excellent, and I make cheese toast at least once a week, Vince.
Well, obviously the Parmesan cheese is good. It's just
Turn Vince up a little bit. We got to hear that because Vince eats his cheese.
Turn your volume up, Vinny.
With his with your wine. Vince has a winery, and you take some of that Sangiovese grape, don't you, and pair it with these cheeses?
We do. The Sangiovese is paired with the Cabernet and the Cabernet Franc to make a beautiful Super Tuscan wine. But, right now the time is in the vineyard, and you're doing a lot of pruning, getting it ready for bud break. It's a beautiful thing to see each and every year.
That's why you're not shaking hands.
Yeah, I know. Dirty over here.
Vince loses his grip.
Oh, man.
Don't give him a football during pruning season.
Just give me some shears, okay?
Yes, shears are much better than double.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Carissa J.
Well, the Carissa,
that's my favorite.
That's it, man. Those wines, those grapes
that's
that we
the
grow,
blend.
Jackie,
That's the
and as they age,
blend.
they get better, Jack.
I know.
So go to HarmonyCheese.com, and when you put in your order, when you check out, put down CRN Talk, you get 10% off your first order. Again, it's HarmonyCheese.com, HARMONY Cheese, CHEESE for you radio listeners out there, HarmonyCheese.com. Go to, when you check out, put CRN Talk, get 10% off your order. Our website, onpointlive.net. Don't forget, get on our YouTube channel, On Point Live with Vince and Jackie. Instagram, we're at on.point.live. And don't forget to email us, onpoint@crntalk.com. That's onpoint@crntalk.com. Buckle up. We got a great guest coming up on Point Live. Welcome back to On Point Live. I'm Michael Horn with Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. Today, I got to tell you, this is a very interesting show for me, and I hope it is for all the fans out there, because you've heard of the greats Tom Brady, you hear Vince Ferragamo, you hear Jackie Slater. What about behind the scenes in football? Jackie mentioned at the top of the show in the offseason. I'm going deeper. Our guest today is Samir Suleiman. He has worked in the NFL for nearly 3 decades. You might not have heard him like every day, but across all facets of operating a professional football franchise, Samir is one of only a few executives to have worked at the NFL league office. He's worked for 3 division-winning organizations that all advanced to conference championship games. Samir was born in Washington, D.C. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree at Sports Management from James Madison University. While at James Madison, he played wide receiver on the 1994 Lambert Cup Championship football team. Later served as the Hart School Advisory Council. But if you dig deep, Samir Suleiman began his NFL career back in 1997 with the NFL Management Council, and while also playing semi-professional football for the Garden State League, and he also was with the champion the Brooklyn Mariners. Now, he joined the Jacksonville Jaguars 1998 through 99 as manager of contract information. During that period, the franchise won its first 2 championships. Then from 2000 to 2009, Samir worked for the St. Louis Rams, becoming one of the youngest directors in the NFL. And during his time there, the team played in Super Bowl 36. Tough for the Rams those days. He was later promoted to director of football operations. He served as the club's secondary football executive, concurrently on the NFL Club Services Committee from 2001 to 2009. In 2011, he worked as a consultant for the Pittsburgh Steelers, later spent 7 seasons with that organization as football administration coordinator. And during that span, Pittsburgh captured 3 AFC North Division championships. Most recently, Samir worked for the Carolina Panthers as the director of player negotiations and salary cap manager before being promoted to vice president of football administration. Now, Jackie, you said you met Samir at an early age. This is a guy who, behind the scenes, when people are worrying about who's quarterback, what football card do they have, this guy's putting the deals together and making team championships. Samir, I didn't want to embarrass you, but welcome to the show. You got quite a record here.
Thank you for having me. That's a wonderful introduction, and it's always an honor to talk about football with a couple of legends of the game.
Well, listen, I am more excited about this than probably anybody because I've known you the longest. It's good to see you. I'm excited for you with your wife expecting that first child of yours at any second now. And if you have to get up and leave, please do so. Don't sit here and talk to us if your wife is about to go into labor here. Get that taken care of.
I definitely will. If you see me run off screen, you know why.
We'll know exactly why.
Understandable.
But anyway, I've known you for a long, long time, and I've watched you from afar, even after you left the Rams and everything, and I've seen the success you've had. And it's really interesting to me that everywhere you have gone, every single place you have gone, you've been a part of a winning franchise. And some of the things that you do is what I really wanted football fans who follow Vince and I in our show to understand that goes on in the offseason. Some of those things that you would never even think about. So tell me, let's just get right into it. Share with me this time of season, right now, after the Combine, what are some of the things that NFL franchises are gearing up to do and are doing now?
Right now, the Combine just finished up, so now have all the teams, coaches, and scouts, they're regrouping, and they're getting ready for free agency kind of concurrently with the NFL draft, comparing notes, things like that. So free agency is coming up soon here in another week or so, and they're kind of finalizing, because at the Combine behind the scenes, you don't have tampering because heaven forbid a team break the league rule of tampering, but you have a lot of tinkering going on. So a lot of meetings were going on behind the scenes with agents where you're kind of finding out a player's market value and really kind of determining then, whether you're in or out on that potential player so that when you go back after the Combine, you can kind of in these meetings say, hey, this guy's going to want too much. Let's pivot to this guy on our list, things like that.
Samir, I'm listening to you talk about the offseason, and as I look at the current NFL teams, I look at a guy like Tom Brady, who's newly acquired young ownership of the team, and with Mark Davis and the rest of the regime there, what, in your estimation, because the offseason is upon us and the projections are now, what do I do to strengthen my team? What do you think are the building blocks moving forward for, say, Tom and to become a successful franchise?
I mean, obviously, it starts with the quarterback position. If you have one, if you have a franchise quarterback, you're going to have a chance to win every single game that you play. And that's obviously a priority for them. I guess the rumor is they're going to move on from Geno Smith and draft the Indiana quarterback. So when you're doing, I went through this search for the franchise quarterback in Carolina with Bryce Young, and it is a lot of it is a grueling process going through not only obviously all the tape and all the workouts, but all the interviews as well and all the testing, because you want to make sure, especially not only is he going to be your on-field general, so to speak, like as Vince knows, but he's going to represent your franchise hopefully for at least a decade, if not longer. And so you want to make sure there's no character issues, there's no medical issues. You want to hope that he's not a jerk, that he's a good teammate, things like that. That he's really going to be represent your franchise and the community that your club is in.
Samir, I mentioned at the beginning here, Samir Suleiman is our guest, everybody. He's worked in the NFL for 3 decades. And you had the multiple, as Jackie mentioned, division-winning franchises. How was your time at the NFL Management Council? How did it shape the way you approach the club side? And explain to our audience, what is the NFL Management Council?
Sure. The Management Council, they basically run the league for the commissioner. They're the ones that negotiate the NFL collective bargaining agreement with the players' union. So when I went to work at the league, the CBA was only 4 years old. A lot of people were still kind of learning the ins and outs of it. But what the CBA does, it obviously sets the salary cap that, it's a hard salary cap system that clubs have to adhere to, and sets player personnel rules with managing rosters. It sets like discipline schedules. Really, every single rule that clubs have to adhere to and players have to adhere to, the NFL Management Council kind of polices that for the clubs. And so that was the best place I could have possibly begun my career, to kind of learn the business from the ground up, but still build contacts and relationships with every club that would call in for questions.
One of the things that we've just experienced was Black Friday, when, it seems like a lot of heads are rolling at the head coaching position. And, that guy, as we have discussed, has to be a leader of men and has to have a lot of football acumen on either side of the ball, both sides in particular, you would prefer. How many different head coaching searches have you been a part of during your time, and what did you learn during that process?
I've been a part of 2 searches, one in St. Louis that we ended up hiring Scott Linehan, and then one in Carolina that we ended up hiring Frank Reich. Fortunately, with Jacksonville, I was working with Tom Coughlin, who won 2 Super Bowls. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And then in Pittsburgh, I worked with Mike Tomlin, who won a Super Bowl, and he should be in the Hall of Fame whenever he retires. But the biggest takes that I think I got from those searches are to make sure that the head coach, because he can't do everything himself, to make sure he has the ability to hire a good staff around him to help him, so that when things aren't going well or going wrong for your team, he's not the only one in the building on that staff trying to think of ways to improve, that he has somebody he can lean on in that staff that has experience. The other thing I would say is that when you're conducting a search, instead of zeroing in and saying, hey, I want an offensive coordinator, I want somebody that was an offensive coordinator, which they always seem to get all the interviews, is I would say find somebody, open your search to all coordinators. I don't think special teams coordinators get enough interviews when they're the ones that know the playing rules better than anybody.
Samir, hang on. We want to continue with this. We're going to take a quick break here. This show is going to blow by today. Samir Suleiman is our guest with Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. It's On Point Live, and we'll be on point after this. It's On Point Live, brought to you by Harmony Cheese. Go to harmonycheese.com. Order your favorite cheese packages. Come on, we got a lot of things coming up here for you. It's special events in your household, maybe birthday celebrations, weekend entertaining. Go to harmonycheese.com. When you leave the website, put down CRN Talk, at 10% off your first order. Our guest today is Samir Suleiman. He has worked nearly 3 decades across all facets of behind the scenes, I would call it, work. It's a front job for him, and it should be a front job for all of us fans to figure out why decisions are made and how they are made. We just were talking with Jackie Slater and Vince Ferragamo and Samir about coaching decisions and things of that nature, and you said it's good to look at all types of coaching before you make your decision in a head coach. Is that right, Samir?
Yeah, I just think that you shouldn't have a closed mind going into the search. That a lot of teams think that they need a hotshot offensive coordinator, but I think not only you have to look at obviously defensive coordinators as well, but special teams coordinators. A lot of people forget that John Harbaugh, he was a special teams coordinator, and he's won a Super Bowl with Baltimore, and even if you go back further to guys like Bill Cowher and I believe Marty Schottenheimer, and even I think Dick Vermeil, I could be wrong, but they were all special teams coordinators at one point in their career.
They certainly were. They certainly were.
There's certainly an importance, Jackie, for getting that longevity and that continuity and continuing consistency with a head coach for many years, and you've been able to do that in your career, Samir. So I think that's definitely a big influence on how the teams do perform, because as we look around the league today, we see the Hunts with Andy Reid, how many years he's been at the helm and how many times they've been in the Super Bowl. Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots, and Mike Tomlin all those years into the playoffs. I mean, I really think that consistency and that continuity, stability over the years is very, very important. And the search for a coach is definitely one of the top keys.
How do you let a guy like Tomlin go? How does he walk out the door? I don't care if he says he wants to take a year off. How does that happen, Samir?
You'd have to ask Art Rooney or Mike Tomlin. But he had an unbelievable run there. I mean, I don't think that record of what is it? Almost 20 seasons without a losing record. I don't think that'll ever be duplicated in the NFL again.
Wow.
But there's things going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. That sometimes it's good for both sides just to have a change of scenery.
We like, and
it worked for Andy Reid. When he left Philadelphia for Kansas City. It's not like he was washed up and couldn't coach anymore. He went and won Super Bowls in Kansas City, and Philly won Super Bowls without him after he left.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Vince, you were talking, and it's a question comes to this show. Vince, you talk about it every week. You get calls because we're in Los Angeles. You guys are former Rams, and I know their fans, they go absolutely ape crazy wondering how Cooper Kupp could have been let go. Vince, am I right? Do you get those stories?
Well, that's a good question to pose to Samir, because when you have a player that's had that kind of success at one team, and not only on his field but off the field, and the influence he's had on other players, Samir, how do you let a player like that go and then you just release him and then he gets picked up by your arch rival in division?
There's a lot of factors that could go into that situation. If I believe when the time they released him, he was probably one of the higher paid receivers in the league, and I think they were probably looking at it, as I try to be the devil's advocate for the team. They were probably looking at his age. Receivers, I'm not sure how old he is, but receivers, the supposed tendency is, after the age of 30, they start to decline. And they also had, Puka Nacua on the team as well, and he was kind of emerging as their go-to receiver. So I think they probably felt like they could afford to move on from Cooper because Puka could be their number one, so that there wouldn't be that much drop off.
But what does the fan base? What part does the fan base play? Because you're going to take a hit with the fans seeing a favorite go, and all of a sudden you lose money at the gate.
Yeah, I mean, you factor it in, but sometimes I always say the best decisions in the interest of the organization aren't always the most popular ones. I remember when I was at the Rams and we released Isaac Bruce. Nobody in the front office. I love Isaac personally. He had the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. He's one of the hardest working receivers I've ever, or players I've ever been around.
Absolutely.
But it was kind of just at that point where the team was. We were kind of just trying to. It's something that you have to take in consideration and it's. I know players don't want to hear, but from a team perspective, you always want to move on from a player a year too early as opposed to a year too late. And there's a delicate balance of timing of when and whether or not you actually do that.
Well, I can honestly say the Rams.
It happened with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and the Rams moved on from me maybe a year too late. I don't know about that.
It's all turned out then.
Anyway, thinking about all the things that are going on right now, we just finished up the combine. We've got pro days coming up, and then we've got visits and everything. Talk to us a little bit about this time of year. How are these teams going about the business of acquiring the talent that they need?
So you're having free agency meetings, but that's more kind of just to finalize your list. There's not going to be a whole lot of free agents on your board that after the first few days are going to be available. So once that's over, then obviously the complete focus is on the draft, and that's really that the scouts have obviously been on the road all season long. But it's really kind of getting the coaches up to speed on these prospects. And so the way they do that is, Some teams will send coaches out to their pro days, because certain positions, the position coaches might want to work them out individually. And then you have these, they call them top 30 visits, which is each team is allowed to bring in 30 draft prospects. And usually that's if you have any follow-up questions after the combine to this point, like if there was a medical issue or if there was a character issue that you just want to sit the player down, talk to them face to face, one-on-one, or even if you have questions about their football IQ, you bring them in and say, hey, coach, put them on the board, test them out, see if he can learn some of our offense in a short amount of time, things like that, because you want to make as much of an informed decision as you possibly can so that you're not taking the wrong players and with usually only seven draft picks.
Corey, who was that player that we talked about last week that they told him specifically, there's 30 questions they're going to ask you. Answer all 30 correct. Answer only 29 correct because miss one. So he left one blank and he got 29 out of 30.
Joe Thuney.
Joe Thuney, remember Jackie?
Thuney, yeah.
Yes.
The offensive lineman.
The guard.
Okay, and
With the
I mean,
Patriots
that's
and
how
now with the
smart
Bears.
he was. I mean, and as Samir's talking about this interview one-on-one, I mean, that's got to go into, be one of the considerations for these coaches if they want to get the guy or not.
Without doubt. Now, the other thing is pro days. When you think about the quarterback, the number one quarterback, that's
Fernando Mendoza.
And when you think about Mendoza, Mendoza is going to, and a lot of players like him choose not to throw, choose not to do this and that at the combine, and they want to have it at their pro days. I think, and Vince and I were talking about this on the way in, I think that those players, former teams, encourage them to have pro days so that the pro scouts can come onto their campuses and not only see the guy, the Mendozas, but to see every other senior that's on that roster for that particular pro day. Is that a correct analysis of how that pro day works?
Yeah, pro days, obviously they showcase the prospects, but they showcase, the campus and the football program as well. So now it's become like a spectacle. And I think, I remember when Johnny Manziel has his pro day, it was on ESPN and they had, I think, former President Bush showed up and, just music, all kinds of things. So it's become quite a production. But, the things, pro days I think are important, like you said, especially if a player didn't work out at the combine, you want to go see them in person. You want to see the athletic ability that you saw on tape. You just want to confirm that. You obviously want to get like your own scouts that have their own stopwatches, things like that. But you got to keep in mind, especially the quarterbacks, it's usually a scripted workout, meaning, they hire their personal quarterback trainers and they say, hey, we're going to throw 25 balls at this workout and that's it. So, it is what it is. And if people didn't see what they wanted to see, that's it. They still have to make their decision. And, but I remember being at a pretty big school's pro day and there was a quarterback that I thought it was a terrible pro day. I didn't think he could make all the NFL throws and he got drafted in the second round anyway. And he ended up being a bust. So I think I was right on that evaluation. But
Good analysis there, Samir. Hey, with all this evaluation, Jackie, and then you come to actual draft day, and then the first round is really the important day. You have 10 minutes, you're on the clock. Do you have any crazy stories about draft day and when your team's on the clock, Samir, when you were in the draft room?
Yeah, nothing too crazy, but I do remember when I was in St. Louis, in 2001, we made a pretty big trade for Aeneas Williams. He was franchise tagged by the Arizona Cardinals, and we made a trade for him. But what a lot of people don't remember or didn't know is that behind the scenes, we announced we agreed to terms, but I was behind the scenes trying to get him not only get a physical for him, but also we had to work out the trade papers and stuff. So with all that going on, it actually came down to the wire when we were almost I think we announced that we agreed to the trade maybe that morning. But then by the time our pick was about to happen, which I think we ended up giving up a second round pick. So by the time that pick was about to come up, it kind of came down to the wire until we had the trade papers signed and submitted. So there was that, and then there was another.
Good choice.
Sorry.
Samir Suleiman is our guest. He's worked in the NFL for nearly 3 decades, giving us a look at what goes on behind the scenes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the show is On Point Live with Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. Don't forget, you can email us your comments, questions, onpoint@crntalk.com, onpoint@crntalk.com. We're brought to you by Harmony Cheese. Go to their site, harmonycheese.com. We'll be back. You're in tune with On Point Live. Yes, we're a radio show. Yes, we're a podcast. Yes, we're subscribe to our On Point Live YouTube channel. You can see Vince and Jackie and our guest Samir Suleiman is here with us today. And our flagship station 790 KABC in Los Angeles. Samir Suleiman's worked, as we have mentioned, nearly 3 decades across all facets of operating a professional football franchise. And I just have to ask you a question, Samir, because you're giving us a good look behind the scenes. But you've worked, as I mentioned at the beginning, 3 division-winning organizations. All those advanced the conference championship games. We're talking about Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. When you get to an organization and they're in maybe ragtag shape, maybe they need a little help, maybe some need a lot of help, what do you do? How do you look at it? These are things that the average fan watching the game don't realize. Getting just the right player with the right attitude, or bringing in somebody with a need at a certain position. Do you go for the name player at quarterback, or do you go for a player with a need at a certain position?
I think most teams publicly like to say that they're going to take the best player available, but the reality is that a lot of teams try to fill that need because they probably struck out in free agency, and then obviously the next best opportunity to fill that need is in the draft. So I personally think, and I've worked for teams that you work so hard to stack your board properly, but then as players are falling or your picks coming up, you see the boards kind of get skewed, and players that certain coaches or scouts they get kind of moved up a little. But really, I think in my opinion, in the later rounds, especially you have multiple picks, that's when it's probably the best to try to draft for the best available player, because you look for players that have maybe at least one redeeming quality, like say they were just incredibly fast, that you say, you know what, it's a 7th round pick, but that player's got Olympic speed. He can make our team faster and probably make the team on special teams. So that's kind of how I've always looked at it.
Jackie, is it true you got signed because you told them you loved Harmony Cheese?
It may have had a little bit to do with it.
Get you going there. I don't know.
May have had a little bit to do with it.
It was a rumor.
As we look May, June, and July, a lot of people think National Football League and they think during the fall and the winter part of the year. But one of the things that motivated me to play as long as I did was to meet the seasons of the football year. Different seasons, I like to categorize them as. There was the football season. There was in May, we had rookie mini camps. We had veteran mini camps in June. We had training camps starting in July. And all of those were critical parts to me to show coaches that I was still a guy that they should have been considering to keep on their teams. When you think about those 3 months, May, June, and July, how important is it in your mind that you get a good look, a really good look at all the players that you've brought there, and then are you making decisions to remove or add pieces at that point during those stages?
Well, so May, right after the draft, usually like a week or 2 after the draft, is when you have rookie mini camp, and that's kind of, you get your brand new toys that everybody kind of wants to get a look at. But again, you kind of have to take it for what it's worth, because there's no pads on, so they're kind of just running around. But that's really the best opportunity, and it's most important to the rookies to try to learn the playbook, learn the system, fit in with the team. Veteran mini camp, the veterans, they're all professionals, been there all off season, since April working out, and so usually those veterans are most likely going to be on your team, except for maybe a couple hanging on, for position battles. So, I don't know how much Jackie could speak on a bit, and I could, how much the veterans get out of veteran mini camp. But I think really those 2 mini camps are more for rookies to see what you have. And then, once those mini camps are over, you kind of reevaluate the team, say, you know what, I don't think this rookie's going to come along in time. I don't think this veteran is going to be able to continue. And so then you kind of start forming another need list that you're going to start tracking once training camp starts.
You know, Samir, then after training camp, you get into the preseason. When Jackie and I first came onto the NFL, that we had 6 preseason games. Are you a fan of the preseason? Now it's only 3 weeks. Is that enough time to get these guys ready for a real long season?
I can't imagine 6 games, but you know, I think 3 games. I think 3 games is plenty, and really, I think again, it's most beneficial to your rookies because you want to see them in the limelight, especially if there's a new offensive system. You want to make sure that that's rolling in time for the season to start. But you know, the downside is, and I always cringed about preseason games, is that you know, if there was a rookie that maybe you don't think he's quite good enough to make your team, but you want to try to hide him on your practice squad, well, then he has, you know, a big play, and you're like, well, now he's got to make the team, and we got to cut somebody else because there's no way he's going to get through waivers. Or I always cringed with preseason games because anytime a player went down, you know, especially if they weren't likely to make the team, then that just meant I was going to have to negotiate an injury settlement, which is never easy. I mean, I remember one time in Pittsburgh, the last preseason game, last play of the game, it was a goal line stand, and after the final whistle, I saw 3 of our players lying on the ground, all season-ending injuries. All 3 players weren't going to make the team, and so I was pretty busy the next day trying to collect as much medical information I could get to try to offer, you know, a fair injury settlement under the deadline of the final cutdown.
What about when you've got controversy as to who's going to play a certain position? And this is during the season. I'll specifically talk about the controversy between Pat Hayden, Vince Ferragamo. I think even Joe Namath was there for the Los Angeles Rams. Everybody in the media, the sports media, all the fans, everybody was loving Vince Ferragamo when he went in there. It wasn't until Pat Hayden got an injury that Vince got his chance to start and then took the Rams on to the Super Bowl. How does that get overlooked by teams, and is that not as overlooked nowadays as maybe it used to be?
No, you know, what's the saying is that everybody loves the backup quarterback, right? And you know, the Rams went through something different, you know, similar to the year before I got there when Trent Green was supposed to be the next franchise quarterback,
right.
And then he got hurt, and then Kurt Warner came in. And then when I was there, the same thing happened to Kurt, where when Kurt was a little banged up, we had Mark Bulger, and he ended up making the Pro Bowl, and then we had to make the difficult decision to move on from Kurt, who obviously his best football was not behind him because he ended up taking the Cardinals to the Super Bowl. So that was probably a you know, mistake on our part, but I understood why we did it at the time because we thought that Mark could carry on, you know, at that position at a high level.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I have always wondered, you know, when I look back at my own career and having been blessed with the opportunity to play as long as I did, was I used to see on our teams cornerbacks and offensive tackles be prized at the same time, but then when either one of them start falling off, that was about the same time that the other one would fall off. You know, the tackles and the corners, I related them together. And it seems like they were coming and going at the same time. I often wondered, why do you think a guy like me would be allowed to stay on a football team for as long as they allowed me to play on that team? What must have been the things that they were considering when they kept me on the Rams?
Well, obviously, I think probably your leadership and experience was invaluable. You know, because you know, there aren't many teams. You always have to. It's kind of again a delicate balance when you're managing your roster of you don't want to have too many older players, you know, over 30, but you want to have some leadership, you know, whether that's, you know, nowadays it seems like the long snappers are probably the oldest players on the team these days, or, you know, one of your specialists, things like that. But no, I mean, every team needs its veteran leaders. You know, there's been probably less than a handful of teams over the years that they were able to win the Super Bowl as being very young teams.
Right.
Dovetail off
The
that.
other thing,
Samir.
the other
Yeah,
thing,
let me
the other
dove-
reason why they kept me on the team is because they weren't paying me.
There was no free agency, right, Jackie?
There was no money. They weren't
There you
paying
go.
me, so I guess that was a good keep in that particular case.
Samir, dovetailing
That
off that
always
question
helps.
that Jackie just asked you, and that is a player that is in tune with the team. Yeah, I know the great Fred Dreyer tells me during TV timeouts he'd be looking to see the opposing sideline to see if it was going to be a pass or if it was going to be a run, depending on how long they stayed in huddle. Vince has talked about that. Jackie, you specifically have talked about how can I get around this guy? How can I hit him the hardest? How do you instill that in a player behind the scenes so that they keep that going? Because I think that's kind of what Jackie's saying. How do you stay there so long? It's because you care about the team, and no matter what happens, you got that overwhelming quest to win.
Yeah, and it's very rare, and I had the fortune of being around multiple Hall of Famers like Jackie. I mean, we mentioned Isaac Bruce. I mean, the reason Isaac was able to play so long at a high level was he probably stretched more than any player I've ever seen stretch before a practice. I mean, he would stretch for an hour just practice. And it's just the little habits like that, or the amount of film that they watch. Where they don't just call it a day after they leave the facility. They're watching film at home as well.
Right.
But it's like a full-time, never-ending job, and that's why players like Jackie are able to play that long, because that's what sets them apart from the people that they're willing to do all the little things that not everybody is.
Yeah, there's no substitute for work ethic, a great work ethic and leadership and camaraderie with other players. I mean, Jackie was really, he was really the catalyst, I think, in more ways than one, to get everybody riled up and ready to play and get ready for Sunday's game.
He pounds that fist. And I got to tell you one thing.
Let's get it going here.
I've
We gotta
been
get
blessed.
going.
Corey Marino, our producer, and I have been blessed to work with Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. Because if you watch a game on Sunday and you get on our text chat room, these guys really care about a game. It's like they're coaching the team. It's like life and death. You guys still have the passion for the game. I think that's a key, Vince.
Well, yeah, and there's a high expectations and speed. And as we look at this draft that's coming up, Jackie, there's some guys that at this combine, Samir, that were running sub 4.5 40s. I mean, linebackers.
6'5".
4.46, Jackie. And that's the two kids from Ohio State.
Yes.
Ran identical 40-yard dashes. Sonny Styles and Arvil Reese.
Yes.
Can you believe the
4.47.
speed these guys have today?
It's unbelievable. And they're not edges. They're off the ball.
No, they're linebackers.
They're off the ball linebackers.
Yeah.
With that height and that kind of range, it's amazing how these guys are developing and how they're evolving into, the game is just getting bigger. The offensive linemen, are taller and rangier. I mean, 6'9" is nothing to think about anymore when you talk about offensive linemen. And it's just amazing to me how big the guys are getting.
Yeah, so Samir, you got to tell us what you're doing now, because Samir Suleiman is our guest here today. You've served on the Diversity and Inclusion Council, currently on the board of directors for Latin American Americans Working for Achievement. Tell us about this organization, and you're doing college scholarships with your in memory of your late mom's name too. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's a great local organization here in Charlotte that my wife actually found. Latin Americans Working for Achievement, that we raise money for high school students, Latino students, to go to college. And I originally started working with them. I created a scholarship in my late mom's name. She was from Argentina, and I'm very proud of that part of my heritage. And then after working with them for a couple of years, I ended up, they asked me to be on their board of directors, which I was. And then I was able, when I worked for the Panthers, we were able to incorporate them in the Hispanic Heritage Month celebration that for the team, that the NFL actually did a short vignette on me that they aired on the NFL Network. So it's a great organization to be a part of. We actually have our annual gala coming up here next week.
Hang on a second. We'll get those details when we come back real quick on Point Live. Vince Ferragamo, Jackie Slater. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On Point Live. I'm Michael Horn, along with our producer, Corey Marino, and the stars of our show, Vince Ferragamo, Hall of Famer Jackie Slater, and our guest, I can't thank you enough, Samir. Samir Suleiman here working with the NFL for so many great years, going to be a papa here pretty quickly. Want to remind you all, celebrate the birth. He'll let us know when, and we'll announce it on the air by getting your Harmony Cheese plate ready to go. You see how I worked that in? HarmonyCheese.com.
You notice that he doesn't have any bags underneath his eyes right now.
No, that's
not yet. Not
that
yet.
Little one gets
Sleepless
here,
nights are ahead.
He's going to have some sleepless nights. There's no
Jackie
doubt
will
about
get him some cheese so he can have his own charcuterie board. And since he's from Argentina, Vince, you just mentioned that Malbec is incredible there, right?
Oh, well, Luigi Bosco's Malbec is unbelievable, but they have the tango and they have soccer down there in Buenos Aires. But Mendoza, Jackie, is the wine town. That's where they grow the grapes, some of the best wines of the world.
And our producer, Corey Marino, your mom is from there?
Corey.
My dad was born in Argentina, so I'm half.
And Samir, your final thoughts here, because you got a lot on your mind right now. This is your first baby coming up, right?
Yeah. I got a late start, but we're very excited and anxious and a little terrified as well. So,
don't sign any NFL deals until he's grown up a little bit.
Well, it's a wonderful time, Samir. I have to tell you, I've had 3 daughters. Jackie's had 2 sons, and my youngest daughter just gave birth to twins, named after my mom and my dad. So it was pretty. It's a blessing to get the babies. But remember, my daughter's a pediatrician. If you ever need any questions,
especially if you come to this part of the country, you got to let Vanessa take a little check-see.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Hey,
sounds good.
I don't want to be pushy here, but Samir, if you run out of names, Mike or Miguel, I think would be a great name if it's a boy.
Okay.
Vincenzo.
Well, it's gonna be a girl, so we already have the name.
It's a girl, yeah. Jacqueline, I like.
Michelle is pretty good then. I think I like that. Pretty good.
Hey, we really do appreciate you
Thanks
joining
so much,
us. Thanks so much. And you're going to be called on again, my friend. We got a lot more. You got a lot more to share with our viewers than what we got out of you today. I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, great thing. Thank you again,
I will
Samir.
too. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Just for being with us, we're going to send you some Harmony Cheese, by the way, at HarmonyCheese.com. You all can get yours. Don't forget, when you check out, put down CRN Talk, 10% off your order. Check us out at our website, onpointlive.net. Don't forget to email us at onpoint@crntalk.com. onpoint@crntalk.com. Gentlemen, what do we always say?
Stay on point.